So it's time. Welcome to the session, Hack-Proof Your Clients and Servers in a Day. I don't know if you ever met me before, or my colleague, The Wolf, a.k.a. Hassan, which is actually his real name. We do things a little differently, just so you know. We're going to run a complete live session. We're not going to do any PowerPoints. Maybe you like PowerPoints, I don't know. But this is going to be completely live. And we haven't really prepared this session either. We're just going to share some of our experience from the field. And the reason we believe that that could be useful for you guys is because we have together like 40 years of experience in the cybersecurity field. Even back in the days when it was called IT security, and even back in the days when it was called computer security, and even back in the days when they didn't even have security. So what we do basically is we do penetration testing, we do incident response, we get to see what happens. We operate all over the world. And we also do security hardening and implementations. But we never sell or do anything with products. We work with Windows internal features. So that is something that we drive a lot, like what you can do with Windows that is built into Windows. Okay? And there are some things that we need to understand. And to set the pace here. We need to understand what the real threat is, right? Do you agree? Oh, they spoke. Good. So this is a frustration. I mean, how do you think the CXO of Sony felt when he came to the office one day and he learned that this was a screen on every computer in the office? This is actually a real screenshot from the Sony computer when they were hacked. You're not happy, you're not smiling, I don't know why. So anyhow, do you think it was hard to own Sony? Sony is a very important company. I have nothing against Sony. This is just an example. I could actually take an example from hundreds and thousands of other companies. So this is merely an example. But these are things that are published, so I can show this, okay? So this is actually some content from a folder inside Sony's network. It's kind of embarrassing, don't you think? So how hard is it to break into environments nowadays? These are actually some of the files. So they're published on the internet. So I'm not showing anything that you can't just download from the web. So they were severely hacked, all their passwords, lots of data, emails and stuff are out. And I think it's important to understand that this is going on for real. This is happening right now. Obama, he wants $14 billion to boost US cybersecurity, to protect government assets. Thank you. I brought like 15 interpreters here just to help me out. Awesome. I told you I'm not going to pay you, just so you know. Maybe a bar of chocolate. Here you go. So, I don't know why he's trying to go for all this money, but one thing is for sure, not too long ago they realized that hackers had broken into the IT platforms that handles his emails, so they could read his unclassified emails, which is still a lot of interesting information about things that's happening. So this is Obama. So can you imagine if he cannot protect his assets, or if his staff can, do you think you're secure? Do you think this is a real problem? We have done more than 1,000 penetration tests, Hassan's and my team. We have almost never ever failed to compromise the entire infrastructure within like 1 or 2 weeks after we start the test. These are pure facts. So we're going to show you what an attack looks like. We're going to show you the tools, how they do it. And more importantly, we're going to explain why many of the things that you purchased will not help you at all. I want to show you why you may not or should not, or maybe you cannot use antivirus to protect from any real attack, for example. Your firewalls will help you, but only so much. So I think that's important. But I don't want you to feel sad about that, because there are a lot of features built into Windows that you can actually use in order to harden your infrastructure. But you're not using it. If it's for me, tell them I'm busy. Okay? So, we're going to start off with a simple, small demo, just for fun. And we need to understand what the infrastructure looks like when people hack stuff nowadays. I mean, it's a simple process of how you hack things. Somehow you break through the perimeter. And basically what you do is either you hack a DMZ server, something that is exposed, or you hack a client. Or you give somebody at Ignite a USB stick. That's a different story. We're going to talk about that later. We actually have one. So in the end of the session, we're going to show you that if I put a USB stick in a computer, I will compromise it. I have one. And I'm willing to tell you that I offer anyone who wants to try, they can bring their computer out on stage, and I'll see if it works or not. I don't care whether or not you have antivirus or whatever. That's going to be the last demo of this session. So if you're ready, I promise I won't do anything bad to your computer. But it will be owned for a while. Just so you know. That's how it works.
That's just remote management.
Yeah, I mean, I offer free services, remote management. But you need to understand one thing. Where do you think the attackers are initiating the attacks from today? Do you think, I mean, just because you read in the papers that there was an attack initiated by China or Russia, do you think there's going to be a server in China with connections from your targeted network? Of course not, no. So this is how they do it. This is only one example, right? Again, only an example. This is my Azure subscription. I did purchase this in my own name, but I could as well have bought a cash credit card in some store on Walmart, and then I could have set up a subscription in Azure, right? Correct? Nod your heads, pretend you understand what I'm saying. Thank you. So, this is my Azure server, and I'm now remoting into my Azure server. So this is it. On this server, I have a Metasploit framework, a command and control center. So basically what this software does, it waits for hacked computers to phone home so I can remote control them. Metasploit is a framework that is free of charge, so I can use it as much as I like to. I don't have to pay a cent or a dollar. It's kind of fun. I actually asked some friends to put that USB stick in their computers. One of them is, what's granddad's name? Mark
Menassi.
Mark Menassi, sorry. Oh, sorry, that was lame. I mean, we're
He's
such good friends. We
though.
can play, but that's actually his computer. He connected. So if he's not here, that's where we can do this. So if you want to tell him what the name of his computer is, you can tell him it's X230MM. That's his computer right there. He's in the ORCAR domain, by the way, or ORCHARD, whatever you say. So how does this work? Well, let's say, for example, we log on to one of these sessions. Like, this is Meterpreter session 12 open. So I can do session, interact, and I can go to the session 12. And I can do get UID, see who's on this computer. Work with me, dude. Don't die on me. This is the first demo. Those are supposed to be fun and cool. Okay, so this is Mark Russ, some other dude working at TechEd, I don't know. So, sysinfo, what kind of computer is he using? It's kind of slow. He needs to buy a new computer. Maybe he needs to ask for a higher salary or something, I don't know. Oh my God, it's got some kind of security in it. Mm-hmm. I could only get his name. That's lame. Let's see what else we can do. His computer's too slow for me. Maybe he turned it off. Who knows? Anyhow, I did check some things on his computer earlier today, like his screen. He likes himself, though. Oops. Anyhow. So, I want to show you one thing. all you need to understand or need to do is I have this thing running, exit. I'm actually going to take this away from him. If I double-click a binary, we're going to start with binaries, and then we're going to go down to things that are more stealthy. So if you look at the old days when people start to serve you a binary, and you double-click something, this counts for if you ever were to download something from the Pirate Bay or whatever. Not that you would ever do that. But if you take this Trojan server is listening all the time. So whenever somebody is connecting, it will be registered. Let's see if we can get the screen so that we can see what's happening. So if someone double-clicks a binary like this, there's a new session open, okay? And this is a free-to-use tool, so we can debate whether or not antivirus is going to pick this up, because there are built-in antivirus circumvention features into this one. So this is session 13, 14 opened. I don't know what's happening here. It's getting completely crazy. 18. Am I constantly hacking myself?
Maybe somebody started using those USB sticks.
Is somebody using, is Mark coming back to me now? Oh my God. What the hell, I can't even. Session, interact with, I don't know what session I'm going to go into now.
27.
27. No.
Sessions. Hi.
Sessions. You're like professionals. I did all the errors in the book. So I'm interacting, get your ID, so here I am. Okay, I hacked myself, obviously, several times. Webcam stream. There will be some take-homes from this demo. So now, I can see myself. I mean, I'm actually using the web camera. I can do a keylogger. I can do basically anything to this computer within the context of a user. I am not local admin on this machine. I am a regular user. People tend to believe that you cannot install malware if you're not local admin. You need to understand that this is an interpreter running in user context. And it's feeding over port 443 in SSL to Azure. Do you think your firewalls are going to block someone connecting to Microsoft IP addresses using encrypted 443 traffic? This is what we need to understand when we invest in all this inspection stuff that will try to find like outbound connections. It's not going to help you. You need to be proactive. This can't happen to your computers, at least not to your important computers. That's really important to understand, because this is the problem right here. Whenever we do a penetration test, if we're allowed to do client-side attacks, we will try to get some kind of malware on one client. That's all it takes. That was streaming. I can do anything, like key scan and stuff. So let's do this in another way. Or let's talk about how you protect yourself from binaries. How do you do that? What do you use to protect yourself from evil binaries? AppLocker. AppLocker is going to help you. Absolutely. So we have AppLocker. AppLocker is very nice. So can you fire up AppLocker just if somebody didn't see it?
8.
8? So one thing you can do to prevent evil binaries to run is AppLocker.
Yeah, it's already configured in here. I just copied the write.exe, which is a totally perfect Windows binary. If you double-click, it says, hey, you're not allowed to run this. I'm logged in as a local admin, by the way, so the AppLocker policy is pretty simple. It says whatever goes in the program files folder and whatever goes in the Windows folder will be allowed to be executed. Otherwise, it will be preventing it from being able to run. And we don't necessarily need to have any more advanced than this. This works perfectly for clients, for servers as well. Just a very simple way of if you happen to push a USB stick or download something, put it on the desktop or anywhere else, and not installing this properly, it will be effectively blocked from being able to run.
Yeah, so it's very convenient, and there are actually some exceptional rules for the program files, the Windows container, which are fine, because the regular user is not supposed to put stuff in there. So if you're using regular user, and then the default AppLocker rules. It's going to help you a lot. From binaries, okay? Next step. What else do people do nowadays in order to get malware into your computers? They will not use binaries anymore. That's the bad part. I mean, they may use some binaries as hack tools later on in the process, but usually they're not going to attack you with a binary. They're not going to link you to an exe file. Could happen, but it's not common. So what's more common? Well, attachments, right? So let's look at client-side attachments. Like somebody sends you an email. Do you know what it looks like when they send you an email? It ends up in your email server. It goes to the internal server, and eventually it ends up on your workstation. Cool, huh? That's a really cool demo. I practiced that a lot. So, anyhow, they actually laughed at that. It wasn't even funny. No, anyhow. So, I have two computers here. This is an internal attacker. This attacker basically does the same thing my Azure computer does, but I'm going to use this internal instead, so I have more of a controlled environment. So I'm going to start off with starting a listener. So my Metasploit environment will wait for connections. So all I need is to have some commands I'm going to give it. And if you look at the configuration here, what I'm sending in, it's kind of straightforward. It says, listen on port 443, wait for reverse HTTPS connections, outbound, phoning home connections, to my attack machine. In my Azure scenario, this was a real DNS address on the internet. Now it's just a local one. And I'm going to ask it to run continuously, so whoever connects is going to be hacked. So my next step will be to see if I can somehow give people an evil payload. And I have another target here. This is the Client 200. The Client 200 have some different evil files. It's so funny. Whenever I show a vulnerable Acrobat Reader picture, then you want to stop PDFs. Whenever I show you an Excel spreadsheet, you're afraid of Excel spreadsheets. Today, I'm going to show you a Word file. I mean, it doesn't really matter. This is actually a macro. There are two different attacks when it comes to client-side files. One is 0 days or like known exploits. The other one will be macros. They're still very common. So in this case, we did a special macro. You can look inside this file. I'm going to copy it so I don't mess it up. I don't know which one is legit, actually. Doesn't matter. So if you look inside this file, and this is pretty cool, actually. Depends on if you're the attacker or the target, though. If you look at the macro here, it will tell you to run some PowerShell stuff. And you're always allowed to run PowerShell. Doesn't matter what execution policy you have, because there is something called execution policy or set execution policy bypass. So that's the security in PowerShell for running PowerShell on computers. And then what it wants to do, and this is where the cool things happen, it wants to invoke evil shellcode that it downloads from the internet. So it downloads using .NET Framework from the web. It says download string. And it's not putting that string on the file system. It just holds it in the PowerShell pipe. And that string is a function so that it can invoke shellcode as an interpreter, which is a Trojan. So basically what happens, I'm going to explain this so it's simpler to comprehend, but inside this Office document, some things are going to happen. First of all, PowerShell is going to run. PowerShell is going to tell .NET Framework to take the content of a file from the internet and then put it straight into RAM as shellcode and execute. So basically, we get a Trojan in RAM that will never touch the disk. Do you think there's any antivirus in the world that will look inside PowerShell process? I don't know one. You can show me one later. You can come up with your computer and you install the antivirus and you can see if it works. It's fine. That's the last demo of the day. you can become a star. So, if you click on this file, or if I enable content, I have one that is working and one that is not. So I'm actually going to see if this was the right one. Yes, Meterpreter session 1 opened. So now this computer phoned home to me because I opened a simple Word document. And a Trojan was installed. So this computer is now red. This is a hacked computer. Me being the hacker, we can still pretend I'm in Azure, it doesn't really matter. Me being the hacker, I can now remote control this computer. There is a command in Metasploit called autoroute. If I run autoroute, I don't need to run it because I'm on this local network in my demo environment. But if this was in Azure, autoroute would allow me to connect to any internal IP addresses through this compromised computer. So I don't need to have more internet access. I only need this one being a gateway or a router into the internal network. I think this is really important to understand, because this is how the attacks are done. This is what you need to defend yourself against. And I think we're kind of naive still. I mean, we read about all these attacks in the papers, right? But some people, they see things you don't see. They see that almost every American company is hacked. Even the old chief of FBI said there are two kinds of companies in this country. There are the ones that are hacked already and the ones that will be hacked soon enough. You're under attack. And it's actually a big problem. You know why it's a big problem? Do you really want to know why? Yes. Do you care? How many of you guys want to have more security in your organizations? How many of you guys are frustrated because the management doesn't really understand the problem? Hands up. Yeah, it's kind of strange. I mean, in a way, we're at war. People are attacking us for real. The problem is we don't even know how to defend ourselves, really. What's even worse, the leaders who are supposed to lead us, they don't even understand the threat. They don't even know what it looks like. It's so different from what they've seen before. They don't understand IT, and it's frustrating. It's like if you were the captain of a big ship, and you were standing here, and you run the entire ship, and you didn't know what was going on underwater. I mean, in every other industry, they know that they have to have some kind of communication channel. They need to know what's happening under the water, right? And all that information has to go up to top management. Otherwise, they will end up like Titanic or something, right? So we need to change. We need to start communicating. We need to actually start fighting to create this awareness inside our own organization so we can actually defend ourselves. Because it's too easy now. And what's happening, I'm going to be serious for a while. I mean, people asked me before, is this going to be a fun session? Well, I'll make some jokes later, okay? I promise you. But, I lost track there for a second. What was I talking about?
Knowing what's happening on the war.
You're not listening to me?
No.
No.
Our leaders.
We're talking about our leaders.
Yeah, and the problem with the war.
Problem with the war. I really lost track. This is funny. I should talk about something else. Pretend that I'm here. No.
Yeah.
You're helping me. Thank you. I appreciate that. No, it's kind of funny because if you look at it, back in the days, if you look at security, like we're supposed to have like a security level, right? We should be on like 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 or something. Like if we're a military organization, we should have level 5. Correct? Nothing should be breakable. Everything should be secure. But they can still read Obama's email. So obviously it doesn't work because he thinks they should be on 5. They're working towards 5, right? So I think we need to think differently. We need to understand that we cannot anymore protect an entire environment to a certain level. And it's kind of sad. I think so personally. Microsoft started communicating this like 2 years ago. I didn't accept it. I was like, no, we should have like a 0 acceptance tolerance. But that's impossible in traffic, so it's probably impossible here as well, right? So what we need to do, we need to rethink what we need to do. So This is my thought process. I'm just sharing this because I need you to start communicating this internally. I mean, first of all, you need to know what your assets are, correct? And they're business related. So let's say you're an online web shop or something. Then I can imagine that your biggest asset would be something like online presence. There is nothing secret in your organization. You sell stuff on the internet, but if your web servers are down, it's going to be lethal for your business, correct? If you're a research industry, then your IP is extremely important. You don't care about online presence, as long as your investment in IP will not be stolen by a competitor, especially not like a foreign one, okay? Or if you're a bank, it's going to be money. So what you need to understand is, we need to think about, okay, how do I protect my online presence? Well, if it's online presence, it's probably going to, the web server is probably going to be very important, right? If there's a database, the SQL server is going to be very important. If there are admin workstations connecting to these, they are probably going to be very important. You know what? If this is the only thing you care about online presence, don't even care about the rest. Protect your assets. We need to start making people understand that we should protect their assets. If it's a bank, the dollars, all the monetary systems, everything that has to do with money, everyone who can interact with those systems, they should be protected. I still see today that domain admins are logging on to their workstations as domain admins. They're surfing the web, downloading some executables, and then they're remote admining their domain controllers. It is too easy. A domain controller would be in each and every one of those because there are dependencies. Because if this SQL server is a member of the domain and I compromise the domain controller, then this is going to be compromised as well, right? So you need to follow like the dependency chain. This is a thought process. You need to understand this. Maybe you don't have to care about Johan's or Peter's computer. Maybe it's not important from your asset perspective. He probably does some important things, but it's a new way of thinking. We need to identify what's important for us. Protect that stuff for real. Protect it, okay? So same thing goes when it comes to client-side attacks. And that's why I brought this up. If I compromise an important client, it's going to be very, very dangerous. If I compromise somebody else's who is not in the link of protecting your assets, it's not going to matter that much. He may do good things for the office, but it's not going to stop your online presence. It's not going to expose your IP. It's not going to take your money away from you. So we need to start thinking in that way. I personally think that a lot of laptops should not be used for online surfing anymore. They should be used for the purpose only. Sole reason, because I do the pen test. I hack them. I see how easy it is. I do the incident response. I see that they get compromised. It's kind of embarrassing where you're a super important person and you're the reason your company got compromised. Can you make a joke? They're not happy anymore. Do something funny.
You just distressed them.
So, anyhow, that was the other part. You want to see the worst part? Because you can still protect yourself from attachment. How can you do? When it comes to macros, you can allow only signed macros. That's a setting you can do in group policy. And you're going to have to start signing your macros, which is a workload, but it would help you out, right? What is the worst thing that could ever happen to you? The worst thing is when you have something that cannot in any way be detected by antivirus, and it's never ever touching disk at all. So this is actually a keyboard device. It's this small, everything else is just a cable. If you can't see it, that's the point. It's small, okay? What this does, it emulates a keyboard. It will send keystrokes. How much did we pay for it?
$10.
$10. It's $10. Okay, if you put this in a computer.
Try this.
Yeah, we can try yours. Let's try Hassan. Do you think Hassan has any security in his computer? Yeah, he does. He's running Emmet, antivirus, and all that stuff. If you're on screen.
Yeah, we're on. Let's give it some time. Oh no, sorry, that USB port is
He
not.
disabled that USB port. Thank you. Yeah.
That's a countermeasure.
It
Okay,
is.
now it's active.
You know what that did? It went by pretty fast, right? We could actually make it faster. There's a delay there to make it slower so that you can see it. And you can take this down as well normally.
Yeah.
So we wanted you to see what's happening. What this did was it was actually sending a PowerShell encoded command. It looks like this. And that command is all you need to do in order to go to my server on the internet. You can actually browse to that server. It's mssecure@cloudapp.net. Very scary URL. If you find it in your firewall logs, it's going to be very scary. And it retrieves this invoke shellcode function. You can go there and download it yourself if you want to. It's fine. It's online. It's on hosted on Microsoft. So this is what does the nasty stuff. So the only thing that did was it's an encoded command that says, go there, download this function, invoke that function that will put the interpreter into RAM. So everybody raised their hands because they took some USB stick down in the exhibition hall. If you put this in your computer, that could potentially be this. This is one of the ways that attackers do it nowadays. They go to trade shows and stuff, and they give out USB sticks for real, and hope that somebody plugs them in, a competitor or something. It's a real attack that they do for real nowadays. And I can imagine how many of you guys have important functions in your IT organizations. It's a very valid attack. It's like, it's not going to happen to me, right? How many of you guys who received a USB stick are still going to put them in your computer later? You know, it's kind of interesting, right? If I made someone change their behavior so that one less company will be hacked, it's a good thing. I'm not saying that they did anything bad. The exhibitors here are very nice. They would never do that to you. I wouldn't either. I only do it to Mark Rusinovich and Mark Menassi. But I think it's important to understand. So the take home from here, what the message I want to send is kind of sad. You can protect yourself from binaries. You can protect yourself from attachments, as long as they're not 0 days. I mean, you can patch your computers so that you will not, get 1 days or known exploits. But it's very hard to protect yourself when someone can execute code on your computer, even though you're a regular user. If you allow someone to put a device into your computer or access your unlocked computer for a minute or seconds, it's too late. You need to be aware of that. And it's okay if it's not the most important computer in your organization. But if it's an important computer, it's going to be lethal. If there's a domain admin or someone else that has important access to important data, it's going to be very important or a very big impact. So,
Good.
Let's go on. Let's do some more stuff. Let's have some fun. Actually, you can use glue. That works as well, especially when it comes to the USB stick. So, next step. We now have compromised one computer. What do we do from here? What is the next natural step when you compromise one computer? Dump the hashes. That's interesting. Everybody talk about the passing the hash problem and hashes, right? But there is a step in between because this is not a local admin. I cannot steal its password hashes. I could potentially do a local admin privilege escalation exploit on this computer. Do you want to show one?
Yes, we can do that.
You could do that.
Yeah, we actually have one rediscovered local privilege escalation attack. This was published back in the days in 2009, if first time. And then security researchers rediscovered this, and we can do it locally in a perfect way. Let's see, I need PowerShell. I need...
The problem with... Is there a patch for this attack?
No.
No. So can any user become local admin using this attack?
Yes.
Is it irresponsible to show you guys that Ignite this? I don't think so, because the hackers already knows about this. So if you don't understand it, how can you mitigate it? Right?
So I'm running as a local user. I'm not an admin. Who am I? /groups. So I'm just a regular user, authenticated user of this organization. Okay. So let me just run the program files in Microsoft. There we go. Let's do scan, and then scan type 3, and then we do a file 127.0.0.1, which is localhost IPC $. So just to show you, this is my local C drive. I'm just a regular user. I'm not allowed to create any files in here. I can create folder as per the default ACLs in the C drive. I cannot create any files. And then we're running a Java component here, which acts as a proxy server. So whenever something scans for localhost file information, it's actually doing something we call a reflection attack. It's taking the credentials, coming through the web interface, and pushing them back to the SMB interface. As a proof of concept, is creating a dummy file in the C drive. And this dummy file is created by the system account. So if we look at the security here, it says the owner is the system account.
So we're not going to do it, but normally we could put this as a startup script or something. Whenever they reboot the computer, it's going to become a system event happening, like a command that will be executed.
The solution for this, just to give you the bright side of the story, so to say, is to enable SMB signing, which has been the recommendation since 2009.
Yeah, but it's kind of interesting because it will actually do a reflection attack on itself. So it's a local attack. But for some reason, there will be a system context that is exposing it right now.
Well, another very funny thing is that I'm telling my Windows Defender to scan / 127.0.0.1 IPC $, and it's adding .exe, .dll, .cmd to it, and then trying to do that, and it's failing with that one. So it's doing a fallback to HTTP WebDAV share, which this Java application will catch and do a perfect forwarding to it.
So we just want to show that these things exist. So when you have a local user, when somebody compromises a local user, they can become an admin. And that's still fine if it's not a very important computer. But if it's a domain admin dude or girl, you're in trouble. Did you know this? Good. Good. Everybody learned something new today. That's good. Does anyone here like chocolate? I think IT people in general, they don't exercise enough. Do you agree? So the first one who takes it gets it. This is delicious Swedish chocolate. You want me to throw one over there? It's so funny. In Europe, I would throw it right away, but here I'm going to get sued. I don't dare. So, first one who takes it gets it. You guys want one as well? We need some energy, right? That side, okay. That was fast. That's a few kilos of chocolate. I know, you don't know what kilos is. Doesn't matter. Anyhow, so Lateral movement. Now we are local admin. Now we can extract password hashes. I'm not even going to go there. I'm going to show you some other examples on how you can become more from just a regular user. Because eventually this may get patched. Right? So what do? What are the different options you have normally? And I'm going to give you some examples that I've seen live that usually happens. And I'm going to run them through Metasploit just to show you that this is a free-to-use tool. So you can do all this stuff from a tool that you don't even have to pay for, that everybody can download. So we have this perimeter breach. We have a backdoor installed. We own this client. Let's see what we can do as a regular user to probe and try to attack internal resources. One thing that we always go for in pen tests, and that we see a lot, is actually SQL servers. I don't know why they're so damn popular to attack. Maybe it has something to do with how they're secured and how they're hardened and the functionality. So this is one example out of many, but I'll show you this one. Because I think if you change this, it's one of the major steps how you can harden your environment. And we're going to talk a little bit about the network segmentation after that. So it's a simple attack. I'm still on the attacker. I have this Meterpreter session open. This is the dude who opened the Word spreadsheet. Oh, sorry, the Word file. So I will interact with him. Sessions interact with session 1. So I'm sitting on the attacker on the internet. Can do a get UID. So this is some dude. Why am I saying dude all the time? Ha ha ha, dude. sysinfo. Just for the record, this is a modern computer.
That's a DevOps dude.
It's a Windows 8.1, 64-bit computer. It's fine. So I'm going to run some simple commands. What you would normally do is you want to see if there are any SQL servers. How do you find internal SQL servers? Pretty straightforward, right? You look for the SQL ports or browser servers or whatever. This is just an example. So I'm going to scan the local network for port 1433. For some reason, it can't see Nmap. What the hell? Oh, wait. I have to do this from the regular Meterpreter, or not from the Meterpreter, from the regular platform. So it's scanning this network, trying to figure out if any of these computers are exposing port 1433. And it's a pretty fast scan, depending on how I configure it. It will tell me that the 100 has a filtered port, the 110 has an open port. So let's attack 110. Okay? So all I need to do is configure a function in Metasploit that says MSSQL login. I will set the target file, or sorry, the target IP address, and I will use a password file containing a number of passwords, and I want it to stop whenever it's successful, and I'm going to run the exploit. So this is a brute force attack. It will, of course, show in logs and stuff, but this is still very common. And I have failed logons until I get a successful logons. I still think this is so funny to show this example, because in the manual for installing SQL Server, it says, please enter a strong SA password. And still, during like 10% of all the pen tests, we find this very password on SQL servers. Like, it's good that people read the manual, but it has something to do with how they think.
Fantasy.
So there's a good chance you have this strong SA password. Maybe not on your own SQL servers, but maybe on some of the ones that you purchased as business systems with hard-coded passwords and stuff like that. Or they can be SASA, or they can be something else. It's kind of funny. One day I did a government agency. They had stickers. They had this server that was handling all the accesses to the physical doors. Okay? And there was a sticker with the name of the security company that implemented it. And when I brute forced that server to access it, it actually had a database with the password of the company. So it was pretty easy to get inside the doors. I could unlock all the doors from that database. So it's really, really common that you find these bad passwords all over the place, especially since they're usually like internal systems. They're not exposed to the internet, so you don't think you have to make them so secure. But again, to me, they're very accessible because I own one client and I can access them from there. So they're not external anymore. So what can I do now? I have the password. Well, I can do something really cool. You know what I'm going to do? I am going to connect using the IP address, the username, and the password I found, but I'm not going to touch the hard drive of the SQL server at all. I'm just going to send a command, which is the PowerShell encoded command that will install the Meterpreter into RAM. So there will not be a file on the SQL server. There will not be no traces. There will be some errors, logons. But when the investigators come later, there will not be any malware on that system unless they check inside the memory. So this is how they do it nowadays. There won't be any traces. If this is a fast attack, like they go through that client, they go through a SQL server, they hack a domain controller, they steal the data and they walk away, there won't be any files. The only reason to put files in there is if you want to come back the next day when you want to be persistent. That's why you find malware in files nowadays. So I think this is important to understand. So I'm going to run this. And again, it's the same command. It's just not even touching disk. Not the coolest UI. Exploit. Session 2 opened. So this SQL server is now compromised, but there is no evidence on the file system at all. If you look inside RAM, how many people you regularly check inside the memory of your SQL servers? Can you please raise your hands? Good point, huh?
Oh, somebody is running PowerShell on SQL Server.
Yeah, actually PowerShell process will be running. Do you think that's going to be very uncommon in the future? Not that either, huh? So I can do sessions, list. You will see that I now have 2 sessions. I have the DevOps dude on the client, and I have the SQL server, which is actually run on the system account, which is not very uncommon when you're on an internal network. So I have system access, so now I can dump and extract password hashes. This is the natural way most attacks are being executed. You find a way to become system somehow. If you're only user in the beginning, you probe for internal servers that are not secured. Of course, it could be an unpatched system as well, but I'll tell you one thing more that most of you don't know. Do you think there are any remote code execution exploits for a real Windows Server 2012 R2? No. Do you think there are any real in-the-wild exploits for Windows Server 2012? Remote code execution? No. Do you think there are any in-the-wild real remote code execution for Windows Server 8 R2? Sorry, Windows Server 2008 R2. There aren't any. You have to go, if you want a stable one, you're going to have to go for Windows Server 2003. There are denial of service exploits. There are a lot of things you can do when it comes to third-party applications. There are definitely a lot of things when it comes to client-side attacks. But with the ASLR and the DEP and all the security features that you paid for that are built into the box, it's damn hard to make a buffer overflow, heap overflow, or anything run on a vulnerable service. You can make it die, but it's very hard to control that system. So if you want to protect them, you should not necessarily focus as much on that as you should on good passwords, good segmentation, and that stuff. Because I know everybody put a lot of effort into patching. And if availability is important, then of course you need to patch them because there's still denial of service. But I will not run over your Windows Server 2012 because you didn't patch it. I will not compromise it because of that. I think it's important to understand what the real problems are. Right? Do you agree? Good. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not joking enough. This is the crew right here. They're like the craziest party people on the planet. At least on the Ignite. So anyhow, we have this Meterpreter, this number 2 computer. What can we do from here? Well, this is a SQL. This one is now red. So what can we do in order to protect these systems, except from the fact that we should have good passwords? I mean, this one has the SA account. Of course, you could have the regular integrated Windows, and you should not even allow for those. You can run it in lower context, which is fine and important. But still, this happens a lot. What is the real thing you should absolutely do? I think one thing that is saddening me is the fact that if I compromise a client, I can always connect to backend resources. Why is that? Why, whenever I compromise a client, it's still very easy for me to connect directly to backend SQL servers, for example, or any other important backend systems? Lots of good information here. You can use firewalls and stuff. I mean, some people do good segmentation, so I agree. Most don't. When you're on an internal network, I can almost always access internal resources. So the simplest example I can give you on how you can mitigate this is if you were using the built-in IPsec functionality of Windows as a firewall, like the local firewall, it would help you a lot. There are some benefits, and we see this implemented. It's not very common, but it really works. And it's built into your box. You don't have to pay anything for it. It's some extra labor. If you had one rule for your backend systems, and the only thing they said was, I allow access from front-end systems, that is okay. And then if there were some management systems like admin computers, they are okay too. The cool thing about IPsec is that you don't need to have IP rules. You can have group-based rules. So if you're a member of a certain group, you're allowed access. So if your computer is a member of the front-end server group, it can access the back-end server computers. We're talking about like 3, 4 rules. Of course, there will have to be exceptions for the non-domain computers and the Linux systems and stuff like that. You're going to have to handle some IP exceptions. But can you imagine what you can do with this? If all your clients had a local firewall that said, I don't listen to other clients, if I were the hacker here, I would not be able to access backend resources, only front-end. So you only have to focus on hardening your internal front-end resources, like the intranet servers, application servers. You don't have to harden all the others. It will be very difficult for me to find high privs. That would help you so much. And we can do the quickest IPsec demo in the history of mankind just to show you how accessible it is. We're not going to set up a large strategy. Sorry, man. But still, I think it's important to know that it's easy to do it.
I got 2 processes running here, MSTSC, which is the remote desktop client. They are running with different user IDs, apparently. So just minimize the task manager. These are the 2 of them. One of them can actually connect to SRv5. The other one cannot do that. They're running on the same machine with the same IP address, just different processes with different user IDs. That's the magic of IPsec. So if we look at the background here, this is internals of the firewall. You see there are 2 connections, secure connections made between this machine and the other party, SRv5. And these are, we see the usernames, the user IDs are visible for the firewall. So I do have a rule base on the firewall on SRv5 that says, hey, if you would like to access remote desktop protocol, you have to do it from a domain computer, and you have to be the guy, that user admin, who's doing that access. So simply the other logged in with the local administrator will never be able to do this.
Like you can see here, you can set one rule for computers and one for users. You can actually have admin workstations. Like if you are an admin person and you're on the admin workstation, then you can access these resources. It will completely kill pass the hash and all that stuff. You're not sitting on the right computer.
Yeah, and by the way, this is not Windows Server 2012. This is 2008 R2, just so you know that it's fully possible to do it with that version as well.
So this is the frustration for me. There are so many things that you have in the box that you paid for already, and you're not using it, but you're very willing to pay for something from Symantec or FireEye or something that costs a lot of money. That will not fix these problems. They will look for known malware or even some behavior. But they're not going to fix these problems. They will, however, monitor and they will look for anomaly. Anomalies. Anomalies. Thank you again. They earn so much chocolate down here. Okay. Close to getting sued again. So anyhow, you're my friends. You wouldn't sue me, right? Well, it depends on how much money I have, right? I know you. So anyhow, I think IPsec, just to look at it, it would be very valuable. I think most people think that you have to go through all the firewall rules and all that stuff. Actually, you don't necessarily have to do that. You can have one rule for the computers. Like, we're back-end servers. Anyone who wants to connect has to be a front-end server or an admin. That's like the only rule. That's how easy it could be. So, what's the next step? Next step would be to start to do some more evil things, of course. I want to steal more credentials. And let's talk about credentials. Everybody's talking about passing the hash. I'm going to give you one other very valid example. This is not so very known, but it has to do with service accounts. If I am not admin, so let's pretend I am still not a local admin on a computer. You know what a regular user can do in Windows? They are allowed to query the domain, so he can ask the domain controller if there is, or if there are any Kerberos integrated services running in the domain. And then he can ask the domain controller if he can please have a Kerberos ticket for that service. That service is going to be signed with the password of the service account. So if you have service accounts with weak passwords, then I can take this ticket, I can actually do this on my offline system, and I can brute force this service account in my own time. It will never provoke a lockout or anything. You can actually run it, so you can steal the screen, you can show it. And this is a built-in functionality. So what I can do is, if I'm a regular user, I can ask the domain controller, please send me a ticket to the service, and I can brute force it, and then I will become that service if I can find the password. So we're going to talk a little bit about how you can do either strong passwords for service accounts or how you can implement things like group management, group managed service accounts and things like that. Because this is what really matters. This is how the hackers will compromise your servers.
So to find all information about service accounts or actually services that are integrated with Active Directory, accepting Kerberos as an authentication protocol, that's single sign-on with Kerberos, we simply use the setSPN tool. This is a built-in tool, and perform a query, and then ask Active Directory, hey, give me all service principal names you know about for all protocols and all host names. This will give you a complete list about that. Just the same thing Marcus did previously when he queried for SQL servers. We can actually do it with a simple setSPN, find str, and then SQL. There we go. These are the two SQL servers integrated in my Active Directory. So I can do this without using any hacker tools. Just setSPN is a built-in tool for admins. Let's go back for the demo. So I'm querying for HTTP-based services. I see there is an intranet of some kind or HR system, that winsec.se. So let me just remove that query. There we go. So the one at the bottom down here, it says there is a user account called hr-svc, which goes to the service, web-based service, hr.winsec.se. So let's do something with this. I do have some commands I need to type in or remember.
Isn't it nice how you can use PowerShell for everything nowadays?
Yeah, so what I'm actually doing here right now is that I want to hr.winsec.se. I'm just requesting a Kerberos ticket for this system as if I was browsing to that system. So let me just, this is my K-list. And if I would like to do a find str with HTTP, I shouldn't find any ticket in here right now. So I'm requesting that ticket, and I do the same thing, and there is a ticket that was collected to my system. So this happens automatically if you fire your browser and then just go to that service, your browser will request that ticket from Active Directory and everything will happen exactly in the same order.
So this would not be a problem unless it was encrypted with the password and the password is weak. And you're the ones setting the password for your services or your colleagues or someone at the office if you're using old school username password combination for services.
So I have a small Mimikatz, just combination of command sequence for Mimikatz that will dump my Kerberos tickets. I'm doing this as a regular user, which you always can do. So I do have them now in a file system. These are my Kerberos tickets for different services. And the one I'm interested in is this specific one with the HTTP address on it. Okay? So you can do this without being an admin. This is totally normal in Windows. And then we're going to use another tool called TJS RepQuack. This is a Python script. We provide it with the word list and provide it with the ticket, which, let me see, was... It started with 1. That's the HTTP ticket or for that service. And we tell it, hey, use this word list to crack the password that is used to encrypt the ticket, simply because the service ticket is encrypted with a service account password. That's how Kerberos works. It's a symmetric encryption schema that runs in the background. So it depends on the time I have to spend on this activity, of course. Now, this was prepared to be demonstrated fast enough. So just have a proper word list.
So if this service was running here, and that service is a local admin on that computer, then even though I was only a regular user on the client, I have now compromised that system. So now I'm probably a local admin on a server. So this is how it's done. How do you protect yourself? We're not going to demonstrate it, but you should look up group managed service accounts. You should look up, I mean, it's better to have just local system actually, or local service or network service, than have one with a static username and password that you have to manage yourself. So it's better with the low built-in accounts, even better with the domain managed group accounts. Not good with the old legacy. Create an account, make it a system, or make it a service, or log on as a service. It's not going to work good for you. Especially not when you have more than one computer, because if this service is local admin on more than one computer, I will be able to use this to log on to several systems, right? That's how it works. So this is how you do these, how you expand influence in a network. You find these accounts and you log on to other systems. Wherever you go later, you extract password hashes. So I'm going to show you that. Again, sitting on the attacker on the internet, interacting with the session 2. And there is something called Kivy, use Kivy. Oh, sorry, load Kivy. This is actually Mimikatz built into Meterpreter. It's a little bit unstable when it comes to modern versions of Windows. But we can show you, for example, as LZ dump. Here you will get, for example, service account passwords. So this service is run under some very important account with a clear text password. So when you have these old school service accounts, if I compromise one computer, I can get them in clear text. If I'm system. If I'm a regular user, I'm going to have to brute force them. Okay? So this is bad enough. Another thing I can do is I can extract password hashes. So I'm actually going to go into shell. I'm going to use a Meterpreter binary. Or sorry, a regular binary for this. I don't like waiting. Can you see? So cd / cd demo. Mimi.cmd. So what this one does is Mimikatz. I just have this CMD file to automate it to save some time. It will steal all the local logged on credentials to this system. And as one example, I can find the Ming DADM. So I usually look for something that could potentially be a domain admin. So if a domain admin would log on to the SQL server or some other server where we could have the service account, I will steal the domain admin credentials and log on to the domain admin or domain controller. So there needs to be boundaries. We can't just have domain admins logging on to less important servers or less important workstations. That is what happens over and over again when corporations get compromised. Keys are getting exposed on low important systems that will expose high important systems. That's what happens all the time. You don't have to buy a third-party product to fix this. You need to understand the problem and you need to know how to mitigate it. Third-party products can help you, absolutely. But every functionality you really need is built into Windows. So, using this, I can do a pass-the-hash attack. It's pretty simple. I can actually install Metasploit on the server. This is the domain controller server 100, using this hash. So all I need to do is this. Take that hash and run a command. The supplied resource already added.
Sometimes this.
I think I don't like this. Let's see. We'll do one more.
Yeah. Well, if you check it, I will show something else. So even though if it is the hash or the real password I have in my hand, I'm logged in here with a local admin that shares exactly the same password. If I'm just showing this quickly.
Yeah, sure. It works now. I was just too impatient. Yeah.
The same password is shared between this local machine and 2 other machines. So I just let's use CLI2 and the $C. So let's see what kind of, it says, hey, the user has not been granted the requested logon type at this computer. So apparently this is a valid admin account. It yet cannot log in or access that system. At the same time, just show you another system that is not configured this way, SRv3, I can successfully access that system with the same local account. So it's all about policies. If we put together policies that denies local admin accounts from accessing other machines over the network, even though we have exactly the same password, it's not going to work for an attacker.
Yeah. The interesting thing about what Hassan is showing is he's using this old built-in functionality of Windows, just a security policy. Allow access to this computer from the network, log on locally, all that stuff. It is really strong. So you can do this with IPsec, you can do this with other things, but it's like backward compatible to Windows 2000.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important to understand. Like if you only have strategies, so domain admins are allowed log on to domain controllers. Certain server admins are allowed log on to certain servers. Certain admin users are allowed log on to certain servers. That's it. You just have to think logically. If I look back on my attacker, it just took some time. So now the domain controller is actually logged on as Ming DADM. So I have an interpreter on his computer. I can check the processes on his computer and see what's running. I can look for the LSAS process, which is the process that is allowed to extract all the password hashes of the domain. It's in the PID 520. I can migrate into that PID. Hopefully. And then I can dump the password hashes of that entire system. And this is what all the hackers usually do. They will steal all your password hashes, and then they can impersonate anyone in the entire corporation. And there will be no failed logons. So I can do a hash dump. And now I can use the same technique to impersonate anyone in the entire domain. So how do you mitigate this? Well, it's pretty straightforward. There are a lot of different techniques you can use, actually. Microsoft has implemented something called authentication mechanism assurance that can be used. We're not going to go through it so much because of the time constraints, but basically you can set a rule so that if you have a certain smart card template, And nowadays, when you have virtual smart cards in Windows, you actually don't have to have a physical smart card. But you can tie an attribute in your template into, for example, being an admin. So the same user account, not having the virtual smart card, can access resources as a user. If he wants to become an admin, he has to do a smart card logon. Then he will actually get membership of a dynamic group. I'm just saying there are functions out there that are built into Windows that you can use. There are more things. Restricted admins. Hassan, can you explain this for a second?
Yeah, this is specifically for RDP, Remote Desktop Protocol. So if you run in restricted admin mode, you will be perfectly managing that server. You will not be able to do any single sign-on to any other resources in the network. Your credentials are not there, simply. You don't have them to be able to, for anybody else to be able to steal them or for yourself to reuse them going anywhere else.
Yeah.
So this is an RDP feature. Just enough admin, this is another very neat feature. This is PowerShell remoting. So you define specific endpoints that limits the amount of commandlets or commands available through PowerShell remoting. So you say this is a SQL Server admin, let's give him those SQL Server commandlets available, or this is a local admin who needs to set IP address, we give him the IP config or whatever that is, and so on. So we can effectively limit that exposure on it. Mm-hmm.
And there's one more, protected users.
The protected user is very neat as well. This is a built-in group, an Active Directory. Whomever you put in that group, that user will be protected against credential theft in terms of any workstation that user logs into. It will be instructed not to keep any fresh credentials for that user. The only thing left, though, is the Kerberos ticket. So if this is vulnerable for passing the ticket, the Kerberos ticket will be limited in time. So default limit will be 4 hours, and you can narrow that down to 45 minutes if you want to.
Yeah, so at least it will decrease the attack surface. Mm-hmm. I'm going to show you a last demo. We only have like 2-3 more minutes. And again, it comes to binaries, because people still don't fear binaries and they trust antivirus. Mm-hmm. I'm going to show you a simple tool that we have internally called AV-Hide. Basically what it does is it takes any evil file and it makes it undetectable for antivirus. Because I want to stress this. So I did a pre-con. I showed this 2 days ago. So let's see if VirusTotal now can recognize this. But I'm going to log on to VirusTotal. And this is the Mimikatz. I'm going to show you. I'm actually not going to run the real Mimikatz because this is my live system. But I'm going to just going to show you that it works. CD bin. Dir, and then we have Mimikatz. So this is the Mimikatz tool that can do password extraction stuff. It is a bad file. So if I upload Mimikatz from the same folder, whoops, let's see where I have this stuff. C bin Mimikatz. If I upload this and scan it, and because of time constraints, it's probably going to be a cached check, so it's going to do the checksum. It will be detected by at least 27 of the 55 most common antiviruses. So if you have one that is that allows for it, then you probably should maybe look at some other alternative. But this is kind of known, though. So if I take my AV-Hide tool, I'm going to do it live just to show you. I can do AV-Hide. I can take the Mimikatz file, and I can do a cool Mimikatz.exe. And this will change the execution path of this file. So we'll actually just throw the functionality around and have a linkage that will still execute the way it should. But it will look different. Another thing that we implement is something called a loop count, because some antivirus scanners, they check for heuristics. So they will lock the file for a while, check the behavior, and then release it to the operating system. So we implement a loop count that will wait it out. So we'll wait a few seconds until it releases it. So I can set this depending on what antivirus. Kaspersky is the most aggressive one. It takes like 20,000. So anyhow, if I do this, cool Mimikatz, I now have dear a cool Mimikatz. So this is cool Mimikatz. If I run it, it's still working. So I can still use the tool. I'm going to upload it. There is a chance it may be detected now because I did the exact same thing 2 days ago on the pre-con. But let's see. So I was a little bit too fast. It's going to have to upload first. Cool Mimikatz. Uploading file. Your file is being analyzed. Your file is now queued for scanning. And 0 out of 8, 0 out of 17, 0 out of 30. So we have a tool internally that will make any known malware undetected. Think about that when you buy antivirus next time, huh?
The link to the drive.
It makes it very easy for us to do pen tests. We can actually use Metasploit. It doesn't matter. It's undetected. We don't have to buy the fancy dynamic payload stuff. We can turn it undetected with a simple tool. It took 4 hours to build the first version, by the way, by a colleague of mine. Now it's more advanced, so now it's more dynamic. So we only have we're over time. We're over time. Okay, I'm going to do one last. Could someone please humor me and bring me their computer so I can prove that this USB thing works? Do we have any volunteer? I will give you this thing if you volunteer. If it works. You have to be on the network and you have to be logged on. Yep. Do you have antivirus?
Just Windows Defender.
Yes, Windows Defender, of course. What country are you from?
Holland.
Holland. That's a risk, actually, because we configured this for US keyboards.
USB?
Because it's emulating a keyboard. So this could potentially malfunction. Then I'm not going to give you the tool. I'm going to try it on someone else. You're going to get a bar of chocolate instead. They cost equally much. Here we go.
Work.
It's hacked. Can your antivirus see anything?
No, nothing.
Wait a second. I'm just going to do something. Don't do anything. Interact. 30. What's your name?
Jeroen.
You don't have to tell me that. I know that already. So, wait. Webcam. Do you have a webcam on the computer? I don't know which side to pick. Can you move in front of the camera or show it to the audience? Do we know each other? Do we know each other? Now we do. Yeah. I'm just trying to say, this is not a staged demo. This is what you need to be aware of. This will not touch disk. It will not be detected by any antivirus. You need to cut the dependencies. You need to mitigate when people can jump around inside your environment using different credential theft. Because computers will be compromised. I have one more thing to tell you, though, before you leave. Or actually, I have two things. It's going to take not more than 30 seconds, so don't leave already. Last TechEd, we had so much fun, we actually gave away our laptops. It was so much fun, I'm going to repeat it this year as well. I'm going to give you away this hacker laptop. So if you come down to the Beyond Trust booth at 4 o'clock today, there will be a raffle. They will give out tickets from 3 o'clock, so you can actually win this. We do it because it's fun. We don't have any kickback from them. We're just using their booth. But I'm going to create a show down there. I'm going to be fun because it's not about security and stuff. It's going to be about fun.
And besides that, we're putting documents, checklists, and other things in that link. This is a OneDrive hosted by Microsoft. So
every demo, every command I did, you didn't have to take notes. It's all going to be in that OneDrive because I know that's the backside of doing live demos. So it's all going to be in there. Another thing, it's more difficult than you think to do all these live demos. It's actually really demanding. So if you like this format, if you want to see us next year and stuff, please fill out the evals. If you didn't like the sessions, don't fill it out. Thank you. Thank you.
thank you.